Hi there, this is Dr. Embody, and we're going to take a look at Project 2. This involves drawing some pretty rectangles, like you see on the screen here. And it uses something that's known as the turtle. If you did the hour of code that I recommended, you've already had a chance to play a little bit with the turtle. In fact, draw a rectangle, just like we're doing here, and move the turtle around. And the idea is that you're controlling sort of like this little robot turtle, and there's a pen attached to it, and that pen draws as the turtle walks around. And you can do things like put the pen up, put the pen down, go to particular coordinates, and so on. A couple of little things about this, and I'll show them to you, is that it involves graphics. Sometimes that's the trickiest thing to do with any piece of software, make something generic that works on everything. So there's a couple of glitches. You can't run Turtle twice in Anaconda in a row. The second time always fails. Third time is a charm. Fourth one fails. Fifth one's a charm. You have to, it's a little bit of an inconvenience. And the same thing about the screen. It shows up and then you have to stop it, and so on. But in this project, we're working on control. How do you control? How do you make some decisions? So there's a little bit of a decision. Did somebody give you a negative value? One thing we find out is that when we have to do error checking, leave that to the end. Right? Get the rest of your program working and then put the error checking in. You'll find that's often the easiest thing to do. So let's for now just assume that we always get an input of a positive value. But even then, I'm going to draw all these rectangles and their colors and they're inside of each other. One of the most important problem-solving strategies we have is to decompose a problem, simplify it. And what's the simplest thing that we can do with this project? Well, it's draw a square. So that's where you should start. And by the way, that's also what you did if you did the hour of code exercise. If you didn't do that, it might be and it's not obvious to you as to how to draw a square, then you might find some clues in that. So that's where you want to start. Just draw a square. So for example, let's take a look. Instead of drawing a square, I'm going to draw a triangle. So I'm just going to do this in the shell. Now I have to import the turtle module, and we're doing a fixed number of sides, so that begs for it to use 4 and range. So I'm going to draw a triangle. And I can make my turtle go forward. I'll just pick a number, 50. And then I'm going to turn. And we know that there's the inside angle of a triangle is 120 degrees. But what is 60 degrees. But I'm really making a turn on the outside. So I want 120. So let's see what it looks like. And the first thing you notice is that, hey, it's not there. Well, it actually is. It's in a separate window. And so what I did here is I gave it instructions to move forward, turn 120 degrees. There was that outside turn, go forward, turn 120 degrees, go forward. That's in a loop. And this will stay there, by the way, until I tell it to go away. So turtle.by is a nice thing. And what that does is that makes the window go away. And so you do the same thing, but now you draw a rectangle instead. So now presumably you can draw a square. All right. So first thing we did was draw a square. All right. Good. Now we say that it has to be centered on the origin, where you start, 0, 0. All right, so I've first did a square. Now how do I center it? Well, what does that mean? Well, if we're at the center, that means I need to move, pick the pen up, go to a some coordinate, and you have to draw this out on a piece of paper, and then draw a square. Okay, so you'll be drawing the square, but you're going to have a preamble of moving and pick the pen up, move to go to where you want to be, put the pen down, draw the square. Right, and so that's how you can center something on a circle. All right, so if I want this thing to be, say, length of side 100, well, what are the coordinates of where I go to? Well, this is part of the problem-solving part. And in fact, this is something you can sit down and design with somebody else, right? And so there, so the next thing I have to do is center it. Then I want to draw a square within a square. All right, so I've drawn one square. Well, let's draw another square. And what does that mean? Well, after I've drawn the first square, I need to now move to some place and draw a smaller square. So how do you do that? What'll be the starting point? What'll be the length of that next square? Length of the side of the next square. Like for example, maybe we're going down by 20, so I want to make that side an 80. So how do I calculate this point if I know that I want to make a square that's 20 times smaller? And figure this out with paper and pencil before you try to write a program that does it. And again, the paper and pencil part, that's the algorithmic part, that's the part that you could sit down and work out with somebody else. So now I've got a square within a square. But what this project says that I want to be able to input, like say the number 5. Okay, I'm going to now draw 5 squares within each other, all centered on the origin. All right, now how do I do that? Well, I used a for loop to do a square. And I did that because it had a fixed number of sides. Well, in this case, we're going to input a value, say draw 7 squares or draw 5 squares or whatever. From the standpoint of my program, I now have a fixed number of rectangles to draw. Let's call it X. And so I want to have another loop. And so what you're ending up with here is I'm going to have a for loop. Go back, actually, I'm going to change my color here. I'm going to have a for loop for my red square. All right, that's a big square. And then I'm going to have inside of that, I'm going to have a for loop for my blue square. And you'll find that when you start filling these in, you actually want to go from largest to smallest, because when you fill these in, a bigger one will obscure the smaller one. So you want a loop within a loop. Right? Well, we already know how to do one square. Now let's do multiple squares. So, all right. Now I've got loops within loops. What do I do next? So, or I've got a square within a square, and then I want a loop to have squares within squares, right? And that's using for statements, right? All right, then what else do we have to do? Well, we have to have some colors. So, all right, so now if I've got the rest of that working, how do I do colors? Oh, that involves things like fill, all right? And that's in the sample that we give you how to do that. And then finally, you have to do random colors, and we give you that. Right? We gave you that code. So now you can incorporate that code into your into your project. So, what does this code look like? It has a function. All right, we haven't done functions yet, but we show you how to use it. We have a piece of code here that says on the right-hand side, and by the way, whenever we have an equal sign, we always do the right-hand side first, and this says pick a color. And that calls this function, and that randomly picks a color out of the list of colors that are there. And those are strings, by the way. And so random color will now be a string, and then we print it. So when I run this program, you can see down here that I end up with a color. And if I go back and I run it again, it randomly picks another color. This time it picked yellow. All right, just randomly, I just keep going along, run this program. It keeps randomly picking colors. And sometimes you'll notice that because it's random, it'll actually pick the same color twice in a row. That's fine. Right? And so when you see your randomly colored squares, you may see two in a row that are the same color. That's okay because we're picking these randomly. So once you get done with getting the squares, then you can do the random colors, and then finally everything else is working. Put in the error check, and that's the decision. So hopefully that gives you something to start with. Good luck.